Okay, team, welcome in. I am wanting to talk about the moon, I guess, and lunar phases. I had made a PowerPoint in the past, and I hate making the PowerPoint. I don't like it at all. I don't want to design them. I don't want to sit here and figure out how to put something that can be much more easily drawn into like a digital format. But anyway, we're going to go over all of this information that I just threw together with a intention to, I guess, present it like this, but a huge barrier because I did not want to do it like that. So instead, I am going to be using this whiteboard erase chart that I made, and there's another video showing how I made that. Very easy. Um, to talk about a bunch of things with the moon. So I had started to want to talk about aspects specifically and how we learn aspects by examining the thema mundi, which we'll do, but we can also lean into aspects by examining lunar phases and the relationship of light in the sky. But also this chart is nice for, I think the first time I came to this exercise, I was trying to, I guess, test myself or learn the information so I could know it more intuitively, like where is the moon at any given moment in any given phase. And so this was very helpful for trying to figure that out. And then while I was using this, the very first time, the little one I have in my journal, to just examine, yeah, where's the moon when the sun is rising, culminating, and setting? Where is the sun when the moon is rising, culminating, and setting? Based on what phase the moon is in. Where is the moon in its monthly travel compared to where the sun may be? Um, and while doing that, while just turning this around and examining the different phases, I was kind of getting like a story emerged about when and where there is light in the sky, when there is a luminary at an angle, and what it might mean to have more or less darkness in the sky overnight, or the luminaries having to share light during the day, competing for attention at angles, or having the angles be kind of like gates or sensitive points, points that we have anticipation about as humans, like will the sun rise kind of thing, always waiting for tomorrow. So I don't really know where and how this is going to go, but I'm just going to be talking about the moon after I talk about the thema mundi using my little whiteboard erase chart here. So when you're learning astrology, the four basics that you need to cover so that you can even look at a chart and know what the symbols mean and how to piece it together to give even like a semblance of a reading. And the first step when you read your chart online and you go, how do all those symbols become these paragraphs of information, is to learn the planets and their symbols, signs and their symbols, houses and aspects. And a lot of people comment that aspects are kind of left to the end and they're confusing and they're like difficult to master. And that's because a lot of the time we'll refer to a planet or a planetary quality to describe an aspect. And so that can be very confusing if you have no idea how to really describe a planet. And so it is important to focus a lot of your time on getting to know the planets. The signs as well are going to have information that ties to the planets because the planets rule each of the signs. And then the houses as well, because if you look at the planetary joys schema or the planetary joys chart, each planet is in a specific house, and the house is kind of like named for the vibe of that planet that's there. And so, learning these planetary qualities, and if you want to learn more about planets, you want to learn about temperament, which is not this video, but that's why really learning the planets is so important because once you know the planets, you can apply that key energy, like this is what astrology is. It is watching the stars in the sky and looking at the world around you and going, oh, there's a correlation. Oh my. So if you get to know the planets, that's going to inform the signs and the houses and the aspects. Where do we learn aspects from? We learn them from the thema mundi. So we learn aspects. We also learn essential dignities and the domicile doctrine, like what planet rules what sign, from the thema mundi, which is the birth chart of the world. So in the birth chart of the world, we are a Cancer rising chart, or Cancer rising planet, I guess. And the zodiac signs always go in the same order every time. Doesn't matter where you start from. And in the thema mundi, we have the planets assigned already in this birth chart. Moon is in the first house, ruling Cancer. Sun is in the second house, ruling Leo. And now we can start to mirror, because these are the luminaries. So these are like two halves of one thing, the light in the sky. We have the daytime light, we have the nighttime light. We have the life-giving light, and then we have kind of like the love-inspiring light, because the moon is just so romantic, you know? So from here we can begin to mirror outward from these two halves of a whole. We have Mercury ruling Virgo and Gemini and being closest to the luminaries. We have Venus ruling Taurus and Libra. And then Mars ruling Aries and Scorpio. Jupiter ruling Pisces and Sagittarius. And Saturn ruling Aquarius and Capricorn. So taking this idea that the luminaries are two halves of a whole, we have all of the light, light being all of information. You can think of white light before it enters a prism and refracts into rainbow colors, or how a white surface is reflecting all of the light and a black surface is absorbing all of the light. White being all of the light all together, and then each color of a thing that you see, like this blue blanket here, is reflecting all the blue light. And so it is not blue because it's reflecting all the blue light away from it. When something is white and it reflects all the light away from it, it is all of those things. It is a whole entire, it is the entire, it is all of those things. It is the entire visible light spectrum in one concentrated form. It is just white light. And then we start to refract out. And so even the wholeness of one is split into two. We have two luminaries, a day and a night, because we're people and we see things and we experience them so much as a binary, which is a limitation within astrology for sure. But leaning into that binary, we have a beautiful symmetry here through the chart, which also gives us our sign rulership, our domiciles. So Mercury has a diurnal sign, Gemini, and a nocturnal sign, Virgo. There's two halves to Mercury, just as there's two halves to the luminaries. There's a day and a night to Venus. There's a day and a night to Mars. There's a day and a night to Jupiter. And there's a day and a night to Saturn. So this is one of the reasons to admire the thema mundi, because it gives us this beautiful symmetry and a place of both modes of expression, outward and inward, active and receptive, right? So let's look at the angles. Because angles are often described as being of a planetary aspect. So for example, Saturn opposes the moon and Saturn opposes the sun. And so oppositions, compared to the luminaries, which are always our focus as the sources of light, light being information and life, what opposes the luminaries, opposes light and life and like isness and existence and our understanding of everything? Saturn. And so oppositions can be seen or understood as being of a quality of Saturn. Trines from each luminary go to Jupiter. And so trines are often described as having a Jupiterian quality. There is a square from each luminary to Mars. And a sextile from each luminary to Venus. So this thema mundi not only gives us the planetary rulerships and a infrastructure for each planet to have both a outward and an inward, an extroverted and an introverted, a solar and a lunar, a diurnal and a nocturnal, a yin and a yang expression. But it also illustrates the reason why we may describe an aspect as embodying the energies or having the resonance of the planet. It comes from the thema mundi, okay? But now I'm wanting to take lunar phases and look at aspects from that angle. Looking at lunar phase aspects, the first thing I need to establish is that there is some pre-existing idea, like just in culture, just in my understanding of like story of the eastern horizon or sunrise. I'm in the northern hemisphere, and so the top of my chart is south, and the height of the sun, like sun is always in the south to me. My shadows always point north. So the MC, and I know the MC is not the zenith, but in this exercise, we're dealing with it kind of like it is. So this is zenith or like noon, high noon. This pen is not good enough for this exercise. The descendant is the western setting hemisphere, and we can call it sunset and also like moonset. And then the IC, the nadir, for me in the northern hemisphere, that's going to represent north. So what can we think about the sunrise? Like overall, sunrise to us, the eastern hemisphere, is birth. Noon, the MC, the culminating point, we could say is success. The western sunset setting point we could think of as darkness, end. And then the IC, this is midnight. And so this is like the scariest, this is kind of the, like the crux. If we had a story, like sometimes we talk about the solar story of like the sun being born and it rises over the sky and then it goes to bed. Oh no, my thing came apart. And then, no. And then the sun has to go through some kind of battle or some hardship or get through some gate in order to be able to rise up and be born again. So this is like a crisis point. So overall, these angles are a little less happy, and these angles might be happier about a planet approaching them or being on them, and a planet swiftly approaching one of these angles may be a little more trepidatious, especially if the role of that planet is to provide light in the sky when we're approaching this angle and we're approaching this angle and we're basically in this part of the chart, right? Just about to rise up in the sky, providing lots of light. This is where, if that's our job, we're very happy. And then when we are about to set, and now it's dark, and now we're going to have to go through the darkest part of the night, and now we start to lighten up because we get to rise again. So this part of the chart for a planet that wants to provide light up in the sky might be kind of a bummer for them to be down here. Another way to look at the angles is like having like a stage, like when something's coming up on the eastern horizon or culminating at the MC, we are like wanting to celebrate them, like, oh, isn't that wonderful? Here you are, welcome to the party. Here you are, welcome up on stage at the party. And then when someone is leaving, we also want to celebrate that when they're walking out the door, or when they're walking off stage, we want to celebrate that. And then this area down here becomes an area of like not being noticed, not being seen, and again, kind of a tense, kind of trepidatious area. Will you come back? Will there be another sunrise? Will there be another appearance? And so to have a planet on one of these angles is a big deal, for that planet, especially again if what they like to do is bring light and shine, and maybe get like the credit for shining and bringing that light. Okay, so that is my basis for talking about the angles the way I'm gonna. Oh. Okay, the way I had set up my other one is that I actually have this ring on the top, which is like tacky and I don't like it. And these are underneath the sticky part. I put a hole in it so that they're like stuck down. And I think I have to do that again. Feeling stick. Okay, let's talk about some lunar phases. So if we have the sun over here, I'll go with northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere. And both. So a new moon happens when the moon is progressing around. She's zooming around the zodiac every month. the whole 360 degrees every 30, well, within 30 days every month. And a new moon is when the moon and the sun line up. If they line up perfectly or within 18 degrees of the north or the south node, it will be a solar eclipse. Solar eclipses are new moons. The moon is tidally locked to the earth, which means that as she's spinning around, she's moving around at such a speed as, okay, how do we examine? This is the face of the moon, okay? She's turning around, and as she's turning around, she's moving at such a pace in her orbit around the Earth or around the zodiac that we only ever see one side of her. So the dark side of the moon is the side that like fields and shields a bunch of like asteroids and space dust and solar wind. And in the new moon, the dark side of the moon, or the side that we never ever see unless we send a satellite with a camera to the other side to send a picture back to us. So like we on Earth never see this side lit up by the sun. In a new moon, that side is completely lit up by the sun. In a new moon, that side is completely lit up by the sun. And so a new moon has a quality to it of both the gravity of the sun and the moon coming together, and of the shadow parts of ourselves, because in the new moon there is no moon at night, there is no light at nighttime, there is no shining light of the moon because the moon is with the sun all throughout the day. And so the new moon has a gravity to it and an illumination to the inner parts of self that no one ever sees. When the moon is coming around to the sun in the new moon, the image I get is of two lovers or two friends, two people who have love for each other, hands out, scars towards each other, thrilled to be together once again, regardless of what we can see. A private moment, right? Moon will progress zodiacally, if we're looking at the chart as a circle in a counterclockwise way. Moon will go to a waxing crescent, which is also like a sextile. The sextile being 60 degrees. Then we come through to the first quarter moon, which is a square at 90 degrees. Moon will keep tracking. Gibbous moon, which is a trine of 120 degrees. And then we have the full moon. And if it's within 18 degrees of either north or south node, it will be a lunar eclipse. And then we keep going past that culmination point of the full moon to a disseminating moon. So now there's a little bit of shadow on the other side. This is also considered 120 degree trine. We don't keep going and adding more and more degrees, because if our starting point is here, if this is our 0 degree that we care about, it would be quicker, instead of like traveling towards this trine, it's quicker to let this trine travel towards us. And this is called a disseminating. This is a gibbous moon. Third quarter moon, which again is a 90. And then we have our balsamic moon, and then we come back into a new moon. Now, technically, by the time we're at the full moon, sun will have moved 15 or 14 degrees over, and by the time we're at another new moon, another 14 degrees. So this new moon happens 30 degrees farther each time because sun is still traveling and its relationship between the two, the sun and the moon. These are the lunar phases and the angles they correspond to. So this is our starting point. This is our legend for what I'm going to be talking about next, which is seeing both sun and moon on the chart through each phase and turning it throughout the day and assessing where's the light. We can look at, if you're trying to practice where is the moon, we're going to look at where is the moon at sunrise and sunset. But also if you want specifics like when the moon is rising, where is sun, like what time of day is that? So we're going to look at both. And we're going to look at what the relationship might be between sharing light and like sharing the work of lighting the sky versus having to work alone or having to work together or getting all the credit and like all the accolades for producing that light. And the kind of storytelling points that are inherent in the angles as anticipated and sometimes crisis points. We're anticipating for a planet to rise, particularly a light-bearing planet like the sun or the moon. We have some anticipation that's a bit more anxious, so some trepidation, some anxiety about a planet going over the IC point. We have like almost a bittersweet and romantic. There's a lot of romanticization about a planet descending down the western horizon and setting over the DC. And there is anticipation, but like for success and for celebration and for prominence and recognition of the MC. All my lines are disappearing on my, even though I did them in Sharpie. Okay, so let's say the sun is at 0 degrees of some sign, and we have the moon there with her. Let's do the phases, yeah? This is a conjunction. Okay, in a new moon, the sun rises and sets with the moon. The moon rises and sets with the sun. They move together. So in the morning, in the daytime, in the evening, if you're out and about and the sun is on your face during a new moon, they're both there together shining on you. Well, not really, because the moon could potentially be like blocking the sun's light. But if we're just thinking about the symbolism of the sun and the moon, both luminaries are working together during the day, but neither of them get to shine alone. It's like they get to work together, but they also have to work together. Neither of them have to work at night. Neither of them are shining at night. And so we have kind of like double duty light during the day, and we have no light at nighttime. So for a new moon, I don't think I'm going to do this for all of them, but for a new moon, you know, that's the level of darkness we have in the trading off with the day, right? Okay, so let's go to first quarter. In the first quarter, we've moved a little bit down. So that when sun rises, we are below the ascendant. So at the first quarter phase, the moon rises in the early morning while the sun is climbing up to the MC, to the culmination point. At noon, moon is culminating. At culmination, sun is setting. At sunset, moon is setting. At moonset, sun is that's anti-culminating. At midnight, first quarter moon, I'm going to call this moving towards the IC, I'm going to call it dying, is dying. And at this part of when moon is at IC, when moon is at the nadir, again, I know I'm kind of misusing that, but just for this exercise, you guys, come on. The sun is building towards rising. We're closer to needing to recover from this thing that the sun just went through, this dying phase, than we are to being reborn again. So we're building towards a rising, but like we still got a long way to go. And so this is representative of the sextile, right? Like we can see that. It's pretty soft. When we're in the daytime together, we're sharing the work, but no one's really like stealing the spotlight from one another. Sun's on the stage and the moon's on the stage and then sun's on the stage and the moon's on the stage. And when we're going through these crisis points of setting and the IC or the nadir, we're right behind each other. It's like they've got support of each other. And then the darkness that we experience from, okay, so sun sets at the first quarter moon, we get a very romantic western setting moon. So when can you see the moon? When can you see the moon? You can't see the moon at a new moon. When can you see the moon in a first quarter? In the west, in the evening. You may get some daytime moon in the sunset. It depends how like brightly lit your part of the sky is, you know. If you're having like a pretty, like I don't know, can you see? Test this. Go out mid-morning in a first quarter moon. So like in the next few days, and look towards the east. Pull up your app and see when the moon might be rising. Or you can go to timeanddate.com and like pull up an actual sky. Anyway. And see, can you see the daytime moon? Can you see her like her pale in the daytime sky? But anyway, so the sun sets and now we're in darkness, but we're not really in darkness because the light of the moon is there. Isn't that lovely? And then until sun rises again, we've got this much less darkness. So this is all represented in the first quarter moon, but also because the first quarter moon is, oh no, sorry, the waxing crescent. I keep calling this the first quarter. Yo, damn! This is the waxing crescent moon. So waxing means building. You can think of like, they used to make beeswax candles by having a wick and like dipping it into the wax. And then dipping it into the wax. And then dipping it into the wax over and over again. And you would build like a layer of candle like that way. So waxing, we're building, and then we have a crescent moon. We drew it before in the legend, so I'm not going to draw it here because northern and southern hemisphere is going to be different. They're going to oppose each other between waxing and waning. All that stuff I just said about this pink one, this is all waxing crescent. Okay, sorry for calling it first quarter. I'm not redoing it. But when do we see the waxing crescent moon? Like this up here, we're daytime, there's light in the sky, light is going down. Now we really might start to see the daytime moon as the light is going down. Now the sun is set, and now we can see the romantic crescent shining brightly, like just that slip of a moon before she sets as well. Now we will go to the first quarter. So in the daytime, we've got both. There's just a little solo time right for the waxing crescent. We're going to draw the angles here. There's just a little bit of solo time for the sun in the morning, just a little bit of, oh, you've got me to yourself. And there's just a little bit of solo time for the moon in the evening, right? Just a little glimpse, and then she's gone again, right? That also sounds very Venusian, right? With the sextile that we're talking about right here also being the angle with the quality of Venus, right? So anyway, loving that. Now we're at the first quarter. So we've moved past here, and now sun or moon has made it over here. Sun will have moved 7 degrees. So we can draw that. Sun is now is that too much? That's probably too much, but whatever. And in the first quarter phase, sun is rising. So at sunset, we are at the IC, so we're at a crisis point. When we rise, when moon rises, the sun is at MC. As sun is setting, moon is culminating. When sun sets, oops. When sun sets, first quarter moon is high up in the sky. And when moon sets, sun is passing through the crisis point of the IC. Sun is shining for the whole first half of the day all alone. And then moon gets to come in and help out a little bit. We've both got some light in the sky. Then there's a turning point, a shift right when we're on center stage, whatever these stages are during the day, when all of the responsibility to light the sky turns to the moon, but again, all of the credit goes to the moon. Now we can see the moon in the western sky. Afternoon, evening, and early night is when we can see the first quarter moon, right? Because now it's nighttime. And we can see first quarter moon for about half the night. And then we just have half of a night to go before the next sunrise. So in day and in night, first quarter moon, each are getting half and half. Or the moon, yeah. So sun gets the morning to shine just as the sun is, and then they share. And then moon gets the first half of the night to shine just as the moon is, and then the second half of the night is completely dark. Okay? First is sun, second is both. First is moon, second is none. Okay. And then if we're looking at when is there light in the sky, there's light all day. Oh, there's double light. Oh, there's still light. And then we lose the light just for a little bit until the sun rises again. And when that night shifts, it today is going to shift later and later according to the chart because everything is still moving, okay? And we're trying to illustrate that. Then we move further along to the Gibbous Phase, or a waxing gibbous moon. And so sun rises. When sun rises, gibbous moon is dying. So while gibbous moon is passing through this IC point, sun is culminating and building in strength. Sun culminates, moon has survived this crisis point and is now rising. When moon rises, sun is setting. When sun sets, moon has just risen. When moon is culminating, sun is dying. When sun is right at the midnight point, moon is coming off of this, I did my work for the day, I've shined as bright as I'm going to shine, and now I get to go to this rest point. So when sun is at the midnight point, this says begins setting, moon begins setting, and when moon has set, sun is rising. So there's an interchange here between moon is set and now we've had a whole lot of light in the sky and now it's gone, but only for a little minute. Just for a slip of the day, of the night, do we have no light. And then, oh, sun has risen again because we're almost at that opposition phase. There's quite a lot of light in the sky. So we've risen, the sun has risen, we're doing daylight, 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 daylight. Just before it looks like we're going to lose the daylight, oh, there's the moon keeping it going. Moonlight, 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 and then darkness. Just a little wee bit of darkness, yeah? So sun gets most of the day. Okay, we'll say that the gibbous moon is visible most of the night. There is little at end where you can't. Can you see the gibbous moon rise? Maybe. I'm not sure. Is the eastern horizon dark enough in the last, 30 degrees maybe? This is not exact. When the sun is setting, is gibbous moon visible as a rise, or do we have to wait for sun to go down to see gibbous moon kind of higher up on the horizon and up in the sky? Do we know? And then the gibbous moon in the daytime is mostly sun, both at the end. And then the nighttime is mostly moon, none at the end. And so we can see, we can compare how the gibbous is more positive than the waxing crescent, because there's just a little bit of solo time for the sun to shine all by herself and for the moon to shine all by herself. In the waxing crescent, which is the sextile, which is of a Venusian quality, yeah, each planet gets just a little bit of time to shine in each bracket of their time. Like sun represents the day, so sun gets a little daytime. Moon represents the night, moon gets just a little bit of nighttime. But neither really has to work alone all that much, but that means neither can really be celebrated on their own all that much. And then in the gibbous is like the continuation of that setup. We get a little bit of solo time to shine in the day and a little bit of solo time in the night for the moon to shine. But then with the gibbous, the sun is shining mostly all alone during the day, getting all the credit, passing through this high stage culmination point, this success point, without moon even being on the stage, which is nice because that hasn't happened for like over a week since we've had the new moon. And then finally, gibbous moon is risen, but it rises when sun is still in the sky. So there's like everybody is here, all the resources are here. This is very positive. Moon gets to culminate and have that success point before sun has to go through this crisis point. So there's still like an abundance of resources. And then while there is some darkness between gibbous moon setting and the sun rising, because the sun has moved a little bit further from this point, there is a little bit of darkness here. It isn't much, so this is still very positive, which sounds very Jupiterian. It sounds very positive, right? And then we come to the, okay, so we would have moved another like 7 degrees. Ooh, right? Week 1, week 2, we're at the full moon. So the full moon is like the opposition. I didn't do the angles for the other ones, but this is like the square, right? Like there was always a trade-off. Someone's always at an angle, someone's always working, there's always some kind of light in the sky, and when there isn't, well, it was only half. Like it's a lot of this or that, this then that, me then you. Compromises were made. And then the gibbous was a trine. The waxing crescent was a sextile. The full is an opposition. So there's tension here. We have the light and the gravity of the sun, and the light illuminating the night, which is usually dark, usually unseen, usually private, usually sleeping. And the moon pulls the tides, and so moon is pulling away anything not as solid and not as tied down as earth, as earthly bodies. So there's a tension here between the gravity of the sun and the moon and a reflection of light, a relationship of light that can both be used to describe the opposition, along with the tension and the need for balance that Saturn brings, as the opposition being a quality of Saturn, an aspect with Saturnian qualities. But let's just look at this the way it is here on my little sheet here. Full and full. So at the full moon, at sunrise, the full moon is setting. At noon, we're at the IC. At set, we are at the AC, and at the, when sun is at midnight, we are on the MC. Similarly, when moon is rising, because we're just doing opposites, right? Moon is rising, sun is on the DC. When we're culminating, sun is on the IC. When we're setting, that's when sun is rising. And when we're on the IC, that's when sun is at the MC. So it's a straight trade-off, right? We have light all day from sunrise through noon through sunset. Sun got to shine all by herself all day, but sun had to do all that work and produce all that light on her own without any help from the moon. And then when sun sets, moon rises. Moon is providing light all night, a whole lot of light. You can see moon rise. So you can see, when can you see the moon? All night. Eastern to rise, west to set. Like it's not going to be blinded by light anywhere. And then by the time moon is setting, sun is rising. So there's a straight trade-off of light. There is no darkness. Because the lights are working full time, but they're working alone. So and then we can keep on moving. So I'm just gonna refresh the board because it's getting a bit too busy. So we had our new moon sun placement, and then 2 weeks later we had our full moon sun placement. And sun is going to keep moving to the next new moon sun placement, and so we're going to move through the third quarter phase as well. So here we have the full moon. We're going to go a little bit further than that, and we'll get to our disseminating moon or our waning gibbous moon. Again, this is a trine. How do we differentiate this trine from the other trine? We use lunar phases to add description to it. And there's a lot of imagery in the moon having more light or less light, growing in light, losing light, getting bigger, getting smaller, that we could explore, but we're just going to keep looking at the relationship of light in the sky and who's where and who's helping who and who gets the credit for having light. This is so silly. That disseminating or waning gibbous moon. Okay? Because we just had the full moon, but moon kept moving day by day about 13 degrees a day through the zodiac. Well, sun is only moving one degree a day. So when the sun rises, moon is still in the sky. Moon is setting. We're coming down. When moon sets, sun is culminating up to the MC. When we're at noon, moon is dying, approaching the IC. When moon is at IC, sun is beginning to set. When sun sets, moon is rising. When moon rises, sun is beginning to die. When sun is at this crisis point or is dying at the IC, moon is, like, this doesn't even make sense, but culminating. And when moon is culminating, sun has now survived to this crisis point and is beginning to rise. When sun rises, moon is already in the sky. So sun doesn't have to like, I'm the only thing powering the sky right now. There's already some light in the western horizon. Sun's got the eastern horizon. We're okay. Then sun gets to appreciate or be appreciated for producing light up at the MC all by herself because moon is not on the scene anymore. And then sun will set and we will have just a little bit of darkness right at the beginning of the night. Okay? So we're having, where's my black one? Darkness at begin of night, double light at begin of day. Okay, where can we see the moon? You can see the moon rise. You can definitely see the moon rise on the eastern horizon. So you're better off to start your moon viewing a little bit after sunset. Look on the eastern horizon. Around midnight, we're going to be looking high overhead in the noonish spot. And then just before dawn, we want to look on the western horizon. And so this is going to become more and more of a theme. If you're going to want to see the waning moon, the moon as she lessens in light and shape and size, this before dawn scenario of having to go out before the sun rises instead of trying to time it for after the sun sets, that's going to become more pertinent. It's going to make more sense to go out right before like sun is about to rise to see the moon than it is to wait like, okay, sun has set, like when am I going to see the moon, when am I going to see the moon. So this is going to become more and more of a theme with the waning moon. Okay, and then at the third quarter, moon has kept on moving. This is another square. So sun rises and where is moon already on the MC? So like that's a bummer for the sun because this is her moment. Hello, I'm here again. But half the crowd is cheering for moon up at the, if we're talking about like just chart placements, moon has a big center stage here on the MC right now. However, sun rises and there's a whole half moon of light up in the sky. If you had wanted to see the moon, moon rises at midnight and then is shining all morning, all morning, all morning until sunrise. Okay, so if you want to see, it's midnight till sunrise, and then in the west you're going to see the day moon. You're going to see like a pale white moon in the sky, potentially. Still in the half moon shape, but you might be able to see the other half of her face from earth shine and just from like light being around. But the brighter lit face that will glow in the nighttime and be illuminated in the nighttime is always the side facing the sun. So this is a 90-degree square. And when we think about Mars and like the competitiveness of Mars, and wanting to take action and like wanting to do things and always having action and doing something, these 3/4 and 1st quarter moons, these half moons, make a lot of sense. Even within that thema mundi, squares are of a Martian quality aspect, even without trying to find it. It's there. It's all there. So we're trading every time luminary is on an angle. The other luminary is also occupying an angle, And so that just kind of like steals everybody's thunder, but it also provides some level of support if it is your job to supply light to the sky, and if you want to do that well and be celebrated for that. It might be annoying to have someone else who is just as celebrated coming onto the scene, your counterpart, like your colleague in the work. However, it is nice to work together for this half a day. You know, it's only half the day. For the sun, it's only the first half of the day, and for the moon, it's only the last half of like her shift shining in the sky until she gets to go to bed and set again. Um, and so it's not all bad, right? But it can be tense sharing that role in the sky. And then finally, we can come back around to the balsamic moon, which is another sextile before we lose traditional aspect and the moon becomes too close to the sun to have them like be communicating with each other through traditional aspect, um, which is anything but within the 60 degrees is like it's too close together. It's like having two actors on a stage looking out at the audience. Like they might be it might look like they're interacting with each other, but they're interacting with the audience, right? They're looking at us. They're not looking at each other. They're looking at the camera. They're not looking like the actors aren't looking towards each other. Um, so where can you see the moon in the sky? Well, moon rises just before sunrise, right? Oh, I didn't write that down. I didn't write any of this down. Third quarter moon, sun is on the IC, AC, MC, DC, DC, IC, AC. So for the balsamic, at sunrise in the balsamic, moon is culminating. At noon in the balsamic, moon is setting. At sunset, moon is dying. And at midnight, moon is rising. At moonrise, sun is rising. When moon is at the MC high noon spot, sun has risen and is culminating. When moon is setting at the DC, sun is also setting. She's coming down from her culmination into the setting. And when moon is going through this crisis point, sun is also on the way right behind, about to die there as well. And so again, I feel like we can see the influence of Venus, or how this could also be considered Venusian, because there's this like slightly building quality between any luminary being on an angle, and the other one is like, well, I'm just about to be at an angle as well. Like I'm also culminating or setting, like there's a motion happening. And when the moon is at this crisis point at the setting at the IC point, and the sun is coming around right behind to like also die as well, there's like a commiseration there. There's like a, well, if you can't beat them, join them. Like there's an empathy there that I feel like is a little Venusian. And when can we see the moon? Well, moon rises right before the sunrise, and so you have to be out and look at the eastern horizon right before sunrise. And then as the days go by, that narrow slip of a morning moon, if you're driving to work earlier in the morning and you drive east and you're seeing this little slip of the moon every month it comes around, this is the balsamic moon. it's going to approach closer and closer and closer to the sun, and we're going to have a new moon cycle. So where is the light? Who's carrying the light during the day? Well, for just a little bit in the morning, right? Again, sextile, just a little morning, we have both have light. And then at nighttime, it's dark, it's dark, it's dark, it's dark, it's dark, it's dark. We have just a little less night. Again, right at the morning. Because they're going to be concentrated around the morning time, right? Because they're together there. So we didn't do this for the other one. So in the full moon, there is no darkness because sun has the sky all day and then moon has the sky all night. In the balsamic moon, sun sets and then there is darkness until, the disseminating moon comes up. And then in the third quarter moon, sun sets and then there's darkness for the first half of the night, and then the second half of the night is brightly lit, and then the first half of the day has double duty light. And then the balsamic moon has darkness for most of the night until the balsamic moon rises. So the balsamic is mostly dark until morning, whereas the waxing crescent, the waning crescent, is mostly dark until morning, and the waxing crescent is mostly dark except a little bit at the evening. Right? So they're both mostly something, like that's kind of sextile, right? But a little bit of something else, a little bit of something else that you need. Not so much that you have to trade off with it, which is the square in the opposition, and not so much of it that it's mostly light, mostly success, mostly accolades, mostly celebration. It's mostly we're together. It's mostly we don't have center stages. It's a lot of darkness. Whereas with the gibbous moons, both the waxing and the waning, with the gibbous moon and the disseminating moon, it's mostly light. There's a lot of light going on in the gibbous moons. It's mostly dark with the sextile moons, but there's a little bit of light. Okay? And it's very sweet and romantic. That little crescent moon in the morning with the balsamic moon and that little crescent moon at the nighttime in the evening with the waxing crescent. Ooh, aren't they lovely? Anyway, I think that's my spiel that I have about the moon and about the angles and about the relationship of light in the sky and how when you're talking about aspects, it's all well and good to learn everything you can about the planets, and you should, and to lean into those descriptors and what do you do with the aspect? You look to the planet. What does that planet like to do? What does that planet want of you? What are all the expressions of that planet? To describe what is going on in the chart when you're looking at aspects, but also the moon. And as Saturn being the definition of the planet that opposes the luminaries and sets that standard of so that's what an opposition is, Saturn and moon have a wonderful relationship that kind of blossoms together between the 28-ish, 27, 28-ish year cycle of the progressed lunar phase and your Saturn return. Saturn taking 30 years to go around the chart and moon taking 30 days. And I feel when you start tracking transits, you can really feel the Saturn moon stuff. They're opposite ends of the traditional planets, and so it's really striking to notice them together because you can really tell when they have something to say to each other in opposition or in square. And so I just find it lovely that, once again, in my mind, there is another correlation between approaching things through the Saturnian, this is the infrastructure, this is the way it was taught, this is the lesson, and lunar, just look at the night sky, just play around with the light. There's the same information is available in the microcosm, in the macrocosm, over and over and over again. And that's what makes it information we can use because it's consistent like this, right? Because the quarter moons can be described in a lunar growth and like reset language, but also in Martian language, right? Because it's the same. It's the same idea that we're looking at over and over and over again through different lenses. And so this is one of them. Hope that inspired you to make your own whiteboard chart. This is not very good for taking notes for y'all, but I think it worked out great. I'm going to have to redraw my house lines with my Sharpie, which is normal. Having this marker on them and then wiping it off causes it to come off. But yeah, that's what I got about the moon and about aspects. Thanks for tuning in. Okay, bye.